I'm thinking about the issue of what in some circles is referred to as crazy wisdom. It's a phenomenon that I think is well represented in Wild Wild Country and some of the ideas of Osho. And yeah, like all the rascal, mischievous mystic types. I mean, we all know so many of them. Well, maybe we don't all, but certainly some of us do. Know quite a few. But I guess there's a part of me that has always sensed, like, I guess the rationalness of whatever validity there is in that idea of almost like this, yeah, like sort of reckless kind of spiritual, the push for spiritual enlightenment. It's a fine line between, openness and that being surrendered and like proactively creating tumult and chaos for yourself. So it's like I can appreciate, I mean, surely I am, no stranger to having played those games a little bit, the crazy wisdom game. Um, and more than ever, sort of the Saturnian nature of my natal astrology, I've really come to appreciate the role that these more rigid religious systems have to play in spiritual development, whatever you want to, however you personally would choose to think about that dimension of the human experience, you know. Um, but I appreciate these systems that like the truth of all the religions is there, and it is all pointing to this higher order, more foundational, like level of what this all is. And so it's like, yeah, you can, all the trappings and sort of like the practices, if you busy yourself with these practices, then, less time in theory to like run amok. And if you are dharmically obligated to run amok, letting that be your practice truly is a thing. And that's where this crazy wisdom stuff has some leeway to play. It's like, it is, maybe think of it as like, it's like pathological levels of the trait openness that makes for creativity. And given a good channel, that creativity does awesome things. That's how we get our great artists. A lot of our best ones are just like channels open. So but anyways, yeah, I'm just like, something like a 10 commandments, these affirmative statements of ethic and moral imperative are like, they're intense. And that's where, if you do look at all the religions though, and like spiritual philosophies, for the most part, all of them at some point tether themselves, if only in a lip service way, to like the real one. to like the big T truth. Huh. I think, yeah. If if being like really extreme about the belief, let's use alcohol. If abstaining from alcohol feels to you like a really legitimate, like, this feels like a commandment and like I'm on board with it, then you totally like should give, yeah, however you're willing to display that reverential dimension of your being, whatever makes you sincerely sit in that space, come from that place, like whatever legitimately is taking you there. It could be anything. It's just that the time scales of certain ones maybe are a little different. Like with alcohol, it may not be until the whole lifetime is up that you're like, okay, like, yes, there was something there, but like we didn't handle it very well. We didn't use it well. Um, it's just a kind of like a kind of a gnarly thing to tangle in. But it's like if you are using it, if you're opting instead to be very casual about it, or even reckless about it, like the sense of getting the karma over with, like if it's weird because it's almost becomes like it becomes like an apathy tinged approach to dharma, to be like, well, I am like a lousy drunk, so let me just like really lean in hard all the way to that. And it's like, yeah, there is a tiny sliver of this, like, yeah, dude, go for it, man. Like, rock, rock and roll, dude. Like, do it, sure. But, it is like, well, at least don't unduly take down anybody else in a meaningful way. Like, be responsible in your reckless, you know, crazy wisdom endeavors. There's something to be said for doing crazy wisdom on yourself. And it is a little sus to try to play this game of like, it's that copying out game. It's the comedians talking politics and falling on, I'm a comedian. It's, you know, look at that funny little tuft of hair up there. Um, yeah, we're all doing our version of those games, no doubt about that. But anyway, the point I think I've been trying to make this whole time really is just that I feel like I have a better sense of my own stand on how to reconcile this crazy wisdom idea, because I've thought about this one with knowledges, right? Eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and unlocking these powers, if you will, the cities, these, I don't know what the other, whatever, yeah, gifts of like the prophesy stuff or whatever in Christianity. And you know like it's, I believe, biblical wisdom, and there is some like just embodied wisdom to it too, to be like, don't get all up in all of that. If you don't really have to, save yourself the trouble. That's what I find for sure with a lot of it. Like, it's still interesting, but like, I'm not like that caught up in like, you know, following what's going on with that stuff any more than I'm following any of the other things that are going on in the world. It's just more events occurring, you know. Current events is what they are. Um, and I suppose, yeah, the most current we can get is like the four angles for sure, but also then, what would it be? The ascendant, you know, that's the most current that it gets. And then what? The moon. Ascending, descending, that stuff, yeah. And then the midheaven stuff is interesting. The vertical. Should I call it vertical? Anyways, now I'm getting far afield, but point being, yes. Embrace. Here's the thing, yeah, it's like you have to appreciate the sort of, whether it comes from a maternal or from a paternal place. This like there it's you're being told clearly like, hey, be careful with all that stuff. Um and it's not, it may for some people be better that they're just afraid of it and they don't do it. But for most people, I'd be willing to guess, for a lot of people anyway, it's like, no, it is useful to go into those, to let yourself get a little bit off the rails, just to kind of keep tabs on it. Like, if nothing else, that whole thing of, yeah, just seeing, you know, it's interesting because it's like you take that gamble. You know, if you had been sober for like 7 years and then someone's like, hey, here's like, here's the thing. I mean, because here's the thing, right? Are you going to drink a kombucha? Because, like, I will. That, like, when I think about it that way, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's like, that's something I like to consume. Call it an ale almost, you know, fermented beverage. I'm into fermented beverage for sure. Um, yeah, and like I will have a drink. I I've been reminded many times in my adult life, post 30s, you know, after the age of like the drinking, the drunk. That's like a rite of passage practically in this culture, which is like, on the one hand, you know, yeah, no harm, no foul, like, sure. But at the same time, like, you know, you can get away with that in some of these other cultures maybe a little bit more. But there is something about the American culture where it's like you really can't, it's already got, at its core, it has a little more of that uninhibited nature. You know, a little in like a it does get a little contentious. We have that. That's what happens when you unleash those things, for sure. But it's like it's just a little different here somehow because, probably because of, yeah, just like sort of the political dimension of this land, and like the incredible karmic detritus that comes with setting this thing up. Uh, I wouldn't call myself an apologist for it all. I'm not necessarily like some kind of like devoted advocate. I'm certainly not, yeah, gonna like condemn it per se. Like, I can acknowledge that, like, we did not, none of these methods have really comported, is that the word, themselves that well. The socio-political economic systems, all the ones all the ones that have scaled up have gone a little bit off the rails. They kind of went haywire. Um, and like, yeah, people's religious things, like, yeah, so a lot of the most structurally advanced people, souls in these organizations, a lot of them are like the most whacked out. They're the most haywire. They've gone the most wrong. And yet, again, it's like there's this crazy wisdom component, though, where it's like, who knows what, I mean, do you really know what's going on? I don't. They might not either. I'm perfectly comfortable to confront that they may have no freaking clue. I mean, that's the central critique of religion, is it not? Just this, like, kind of petty, it's like an almost ironically petty, or like, it's this incredible dismissiveness, treating it as this arbitrary and petty, whatever angle you might take. Is it a crutch, Is it a moral crutch? Is it whatever, an ego scaffolding? And it's like, yeah, it is all those things for everybody, for sure. But so is, like, you don't escape the function which is being, like, played out through those structures and forms. It's like the expression or manifestation of the thing is not that compelling in its distinctness, because the isness of it is still there. So it's like, it sort of doesn't matter. It's like, even your atheism can become this, like, fanatical endeavor and an exercise in, what is that word? I had it. It's like, yeah, a place to exercise your religious fervor. So, like, you might not be believing in a religion, but you are engaging in from the place of religiosity. Like, what are you bound to? What is your yoke? You can't. It's just like, and again, it's like, all gets so ironic, because most people, right, the thing they're most bound to, the most tightly yoked thing, is belief. And belief is like, that's the flimsiest thing you could want to be bound back to. That's the backup, is just like some flimsy beliefs. That's a little, woo. I mean, sometimes it's not going to matter, but you scale that issue up and it's like, woo. So it's like, we all seek out some sense. It's that fourth house cusp thing in the natal charts. Our binding back, our anchor, our yoga. And so, yeah, a lot of people, clearly, it's like the beliefs is a big one. Physical, the body is a huge one. The objects of sensation, huge. All these little pulls. The pushing and pulling of it all is just like, ugh. I feel like I could say so much more, but the only thing I was supposed to even come here to say is that I think it's wise for people who are like afraid, the people who use religion because they're scared. I really respect that. At my heart of hearts, I think that's what I am. That's what I would be, honestly. Um, Most of us probably would. If you listen to like the modern economic complaint of the, American liberal, it will kind of lean in this like, no, let me just be the let me be the sheep. I don't want to be the shepherd. It's like, no, you don't. Me, I don't want to be either, frankly. But it's like, I have endured enough crazy wisdom just of my own, you know, in light of what I am, of course. So I've had my share of the crazy wisdom stuff, the stuff that a lot of people maybe would be afraid to like dabble into. Some people are going to be like, I am not touching any kinds of substances. And some of us are like, what does that substance do? Like, let's check it out. That's the scientific endeavor in so many ways. The chemistry endeavors. I mean, we're all partaking of all of it all the time. It is what this is made of. But it's almost, yeah, it's interesting because, like, I was talking about this stuff the other day. It's like the language, the language of elements, humors, these sort of like what we might think of as like metaphorical, but probably it's more allegorical. Because it's not that metaphoric when you really think about it. When we say fire element, we aren't kidding. We're talking about heat. You are 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. You're warmer than certainly 50% of the stuff you engage with and encounter all the time. If you're not on the equator, at least like once a year, your body temperature is warmer than the atmosphere around you, assuming you're outside. At nighttime, probably almost everywhere on Earth, there's probably almost nowhere on Earth that at nighttime you wouldn't be, at least initially, the warmest thing in the environment. Um, Life is fire, it makes heat. But it's like, that's a description. This is a language for talking about the processes, whereas like hard science, chemistry, more the engineering side of it, I guess, yeah, is what we're talking about. It's like, that's more so a tool. There are descriptions within, and they're much more technical descriptions. And you could plot the language, the syntax is the same. The fire melts the metal, or whatever. And it's like, I mean, that does happen, literally. And like the process that is, warming things up and having them be consumed. Wood fuels the fire, better example, right? It's like, yeah, you throw that log on there and you can use the scientific description and it's true and it makes sense. But even using like these more allegorical descriptions, you're not necessarily being like wrong, save for like, you would only be wrong to the degree you're in denial of the scientific explanation. And to me, that dynamic goes both ways. That's the only flaw of the hyper skeptical scientist from my mind. It's like, no, the science is correct. You have this technical description of what's going on, but the truth of that can't harm the truth of the allegorical version of the story, pun intended. Well, it wasn't intended, but must have been in some way. um, yeah, there's a truth is being spoken from both of these languages, and as long as if you're actually connecting to the truth of the language you prefer to speak, so long when you're coming from the sincere truth of that language, you should certainly, if you're in the company of someone who is really connected to the truth of the other one, if you got in a room with them, in theory, whichever one of you couldn't like agree, that you would be the one who's wrong. We would know instantly because both people are technically coming from truth. So the first person to say no, to deny what's being spoken, that's the one who's incorrect. It's like truth is true no matter what descriptions you're using. And like me personally, I'm fairly comfortable. I kind of like this allegorical language of the world around me. You know, because I'm not that interested in like too extensive of a quote unquote engineering dimension of it necessarily, although maybe more in the pure energetic realm. I guess I am operating more than I even like or realize. Um, but it's so funny because, like, for me, boiling water, I'm like, oh, I gotta boil this water to make some noodles. And it's like, bro, we're boiling water. Where'd the fire come from? You know, super wild. So, but it's, yeah, it's like not lost on me. And when I'm doing that, I can appreciate this like fire boils the water, and like the water is in this metal pan, and this metal pan was, you know, came from the soils. These, like, what would you call it? The earth element is, it's like metals, it's crystalline, it's like crystalline structure. It's like the matrices of harder materials. Metal, rock, like they're pretty, we can bust them up, but we can't, it's like, is it a density thing? They're very dense compared to us. It's like we cannot go through them. They can go through us. Pound for pound. I mean, if you got the right, there's all sorts of other forces involved. But this is hilariously far afield from where I started, I think, or maybe it's not. It doesn't matter. Yeah, truth spoken from whichever perspective is true. As long as it's true, then it's true. And it's, yeah, there's something again interesting about like this more technical description and these kind of flowery descriptions, we'll say, allegorical, but there's still a truth to them. So it's like we can be anchored to that. And if we're anchored to that, then it doesn't matter which description we use, whether this technical engineering language, this very hyper literal language, or if we are in that more allegorical, still just as it's very vivid. It's like less literally true on one way of thinking about it, but it's like really not. It still is. It's describing, yeah, it's describing like the motion and the unfolding. It's very temporal. I'm just like such a, I ride for time, man. I don't know what that is. I guess that's that Saturnian part of me again. I think time is a vibe. I mean, what is the, yeah, I had the thought the other day. It's like, if you are a time denier, then you sort of have to reject music. It's like, yeah, I don't know how to square that. I mean, I'm comfortable to acknowledge like a potential existence of, say, like a timelessness dimension. Maybe the space dimensions themselves technically are devoid of time, but that's not where like the experience resides. The experience does reside in the time. And it's like the scales of the time is like one thing. I mean, if you keep saying time is real, I think what you mean is that you have perceived a larger uh, subdivision of the time. Like you're not currently like living inside the 2 bar loop. You're like, oh, there's a whole page of these bars. There's like 32 bars on this page. And it's like, oh, probably there's more than that. It's probably like, yeah, I don't know how many, way more than two. So it's like, all of a sudden you're in this like, oh, holy crap. Time didn't get, time didn't go away. You are just, you finally aren't like operating at this one particular, because there also is that subdivided, like getting really small in there. There's that dimension too. And that is more the frequential dimension, frankly. It's like it's quantum small. Then everyday life is this kind of like classical time dimension. And then there is this, call it Akashic, I guess, or, these like the yugas or whatever, these really, really big. What frequency is to a bar of music, a bar of music is to this larger scale of times. It's like it's a frequency as far as that thing is concerned. The iteration, it's so interesting. Yeah, it's just like the scale's big enough, yeah, that like the iterativeness almost disappears. It sort of loses the sense of like it's happening. It's too many frames per second, right, for you to process. Once you're into like those dimensions of it, it's like, okay, wow, this is like really going on. So, anyways, time is real. Time is real. Crazy wisdom. I mean, yeah, that was the original point. Better to be afraid of acting a fool and letting that constrain you than needlessly wrecking things. But, you know, we are obligated to take our karmic whatever in terms of our dharmic direction, and then maybe we are going to cycle up, or we might kind of cycle down and mess things up even worse for ourselves. But it's like lean into your crazy wisdom. Got a weird noise. It's like lean into that crazy wisdom. You just hope you have someone around you who will be willing to recognize that, like, like you got in too deep, bro. We got to like pull you out of that. Like having that arrangement before to be like, look, I'm going to do this. So you like keep tabs on me, you know? Because it's like we basically are obligated to do as much whatever that we're going to do to ourselves as we're going to. And this whole notion of like karmic contracts, if we are, maybe we are obligated, or obligated might not be the right word, but like, maybe we did make an arrangement with another soul and we were like, hey, let's like even there may be, yeah, these like attempts to like balance karmic ledgers, and that's why vengeance is so creepy, because it's like you come back and you still have that. You came back with an energetic signature of literally being like, I want to harm somebody. And so it's like, don't be alarmed when you do then. You probably, you might totally go around harming people unconsciously for like 45 years. And then it was like, oh, like I was really like wishing on people's downfalls and stuff. And it's like, that's kind of crazy. Um, yeah, versus coming around and having on your mind more of a like, man, like this place is great. I gotta like savor this. Gotta really make sure to take it all in next time around. It's like, that's a very different kind of flavor to the whole ride now, isn't it? So, anyways, embrace your, this is the whole embrace your demons, non-repressiveness. It's like you have to acknowledge that little kind of like, you got to acknowledge that sinner in you. You got to know it's there, and you got to confront it. You got to be willing to like feel enough of it to understand, like, being at peace with it somehow is important. And so whether that's by living so clean that you really do, but it's like that still has this kind of like underlying tension to it. And it's like, there is something a little, it's like, yeah, allowing it to be out in the open so you can guide it. You can't guide something that is just like locked up. And if it's under too much tension, then it just goes like poof, and you can't control it at all. So it's like, I mean, I think, yeah, whatever that rite of passage in, I don't know if it's a Mennonite or Amish or what thing, but it's like, when you turn, probably it is 21 or something, when you turn whatever that age is, they're like, okay, go to the city and like see what you think about what's going on there. And like, having had the luxury of growing up free from all of the messed up energy that's going on out here, with any sense, you would be like, all right, I'm going back. Like, these people are bonkers. But there is some magic in the bonkersness, no doubt. But it's like, amongst those people, like, some odd percent get a taste of this thing and they get hooked, they get sucked in, or they just find, it may not necessarily be like in this sort of like, yeah, it's not like necessarily wrong or bad at all for them. Some of them probably it is like hooked and dragged under, but for some of them it's probably like, their soul is picking up on it, like they needed that upstart in this like really awesome, I mean, I'm sure it has its problems, frankly, but it's like, again, kind of, there is some modicum of like, people aren't doing like super crazy things. They're doing some things to a crazy scale, but they're not doing all of the crazy things. Like, there's only so many casual ways to drive drunk. There is, like, for every human being, it seems like some threshold where it's like, oh, that technically wasn't a big deal. For some people, it probably is none. If they've had any drink, it's like not to operate a motor vehicle, not the right time. And other people, it's like, I mean, physiologically, they may be able to pull it off, but it's just like, again, this like more karmic scale where it's like, yeah, it may be those thresholds, these like risk assessment thingios that we in theory are sort of doing like kind of by default all day long, just like the machinery of the compute and the processing of like approach or avoid, attachment, aversion, the Taiji binary of like, do we like yes to this or like no to it? Dopamine or like whatever. I mean, it's interesting because dopamine can keep you hooked in, but it could also cause you to leave the thing if the dopamine is like attached to the right experience. You'd be like, I'd way rather go do that. Anyway, that's a little closer to the point I was trying to make. I think it's like flex the demons a little bit, preferably, yeah, with like someone to be there to kind of be like the wingman for it. But it's like flex those demons a little bit and kind of get a feel for how they work so you can recognize when they're really operating. Because the last thing you would want is to be so forcibly in control of that impulsive energy in one place that you're letting it pervert and totally screw up some other dimension of your being, where now you are still kind of unleashing this like pathological dimension of yourself, when really it's like if you would have just kind of smoothly distribute. I mean, is it better to be, let's use the tropical astrology framework of the 12 houses? It's like, would you rather have your demons present in all 12 houses, but just like, we put a cap on it where it's like, call it whole houses almost, or like equal degree houses. It's like, okay, your demons are going to be, let's call it, we're working out of like a 12, I don't know, 50-50 sounds so scary, but that probably is technically what most of what we're dealing with by and large. But because, okay, we're trying to make this though technically seem appealing. So let's say the idea would be like, your demons are going to be present in every single house, but like at 5%. So you're 5% evil in all dimensions of your life. Or you have the option to be like, okay, in quite a few dimensions of your life, you are like 100% good. You are doing so much good. Wow. So amazing. Let's call it 10. You get 10 in 10 of these houses. You are exemplar status. You are the pinnacle. You are the role model, truly. You are the worthy role model. You are the divinely, it's like, wow. But in those other two houses, you are like, dare we say 100% evil? I mean, that's a little extreme. Call it 90% in each one. But you're going to be like, kind of like a bad person in these two houses. So you are like all good in 10 houses, but like absolutely shady in these other two houses? Or would you be like, well, I'm like, and now that I think about it a little more, I'm like, oh, I might change these numbers for like the equal distribution. But it's like, okay, so I can be 80% totally good in those 10 houses, and then like or just like a little chunk straight up like bad person in these other two houses. Or to be like, you're not 100% good anywhere. You're just sort of good everywhere. But like you are absolutely prone to error in all of them. There's not a single place where you're like an exemplar. You're not a master of anything. Jack of all trades, call it that, right? So it's like you're 20-30% not a good person in all of these domains. But in every single one of the domains, you are on balance net. You're creating net good. You're not creating like full scale, you know, you're not being totally malignant the whole time, but like you are like, ooh, it's like a little slippery. That's an interesting, I don't know if I closed the loop on where this all started or not. I don't care at this point. I want to stop talking on the camera. I'm thirsty. And I don't know. This is an interesting thing that's more interesting to think about. I don't need to talk about it, but I would be curious to know what people might think. If you actually are here at the end of this video, first of all, that's hilarious. And second of all, thank you. And third of all, like the video, I guess. I don't care if you do or don't, but like you could. What I really want would be, leave the comment of if you were given the power to choose your moral constitution, would you select to be absolutely heroic, royal, divine in 10 of the 12 dimensions of your life, but to be legitimately like malignant, evil, bad, to be like kind of a bad person in the remaining 2 dimensions? Would you take that on? Would you take that on? Or would you prefer to be thirty percent like bad in all of the dimensions, but in all those dimensions you are like 70% good? Somehow that percentage I still don't love, but it's like, do whatever, like manipulate that math for yourself as hard as you need to like make it a compelling question. The art of enjoying this isn't in the resolution, it is in like the framing of it as a question, like finding that tension point. So like whatever the ratio would be for you, it's like, would you rather be like have these extremes of your goodness and your badness on display, or would you prefer to have it kind of be, a little muddled and a little more subtle than that? Interesting notion. I don't know what I think. I think I do lean in that jack of all trades thing a little bit. Like, anyway, I'm going to talk for another hour if I don't just get out of here. So that's a wrap. I want to know what people think. Pick your style and put it in the comment, y'all. Peace.